Go Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Makunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Priyamardanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Krishna Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Go Premanandi. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. A little bit of a small room today. I don't know where the Krishna house is. They went on vacation. So we'll start with Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Kalachandji Radha Kalachandji Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jai Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Alright, I'll begin with an invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Altogether, Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise of the transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Jai. So, welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Thank you all for being here and participating in the daily yagya. When the sages wanted to benefit the age of Kali, they did a big fire sacrifice, and later it was revealed to them that the sacrifice was the actual sacrifice. When their fire sacrifice didn't work, what did they do? They heard Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is our daily yagya, and we're in the middle of the week, so if anyone's tired, we have some peanuts peanuts to pack, can keep you awake. Yeah, and we'll get right into the verses today. All right. So, yesterday we were hearing about Dustin. Do you remember one thing we heard about yesterday?
No.
Okay, so there was Diti. She was doing austerities, and she was going to have a son who could kill Indra. Dustin, do you remember what Indra did to her child?
He killed him.
He tried. So when she messed up on her vows, when she messed up on her austerities, Indra, he was watching and he was waiting for her to mess up so he could enter into her womb. He could become extremely tiny, kind of like those superheroes or whatever, but this is the original. And he entered into her womb, and he tried to cut her son into pieces, cut him into 7 pieces, and then somehow it became 7 people. And it's this guy that the Supreme Lord, he arranged this. And so then they were crying, "Why are you cutting us?" He's like, "Oh, do not cry," you know. And then he cut them again into 7 more pieces. And now there's 49 of them. If you do 7 times 7, it's 49. And so they're saying, we're your brothers. Why do you keep on cutting us to pieces? And Indra, he kind of came to his senses, and he realized that because of Diti's devotional service, all these, the son who was meant to kill him became a devotee and became his friend, his brother. So we'll read text 65.
Sukadeva Goswami said, "My dear King Parikshit, when you were burned by the Brahmastra of Asvatam, but when Lord Krishna entered the womb of your mother, you were saved. Similarly, although the one embryo was cut into 49 pieces by the thunderbolt of Indra, they were all saved by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead."
Wow. I'm just reading now that he used his thunderbolt. Like, wow, that is something to use on an embryo. But yeah, right here, Shukadeva Goswami is like, isn't this familiar to you? You know, you were also in the womb, and you were attacked in the womb. So similarly, like how you were saved, these children were also saved. Next text, please.
If one worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original person, even once, he receives the benefit of being promoted to the spiritual world and possessing the same bodily features as Vishnu. Diti worshipped Lord Vishnu for almost 1 year, adhering to a great vow. Because of such strength in spiritual life, the 49 Maruts were born. How, then, is it wonderful that the Maruts, although born from the womb of Diti, became equal to the demigods by the mercy of the Supreme Lord.
Because of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Diti was completely purified. When she got up from bed, she saw her 49 sons along with Indra. These 49 sons were all as brilliant as fire and were in friendship with Indra. Therefore, she was very pleased.
So, yeah, this is a little bit of a happy ending, right? You know, as the sons come out and everyone decided to be friends. So, woohoo!
Thereafter, Diti said to Indra, "My dear son, I adhered to this difficult vow just to get a son to kill you 12 Adityas."
I prayed for only one son, but now I see there are 49. How has this happened? My dear son Indra, if you know, please tell me the truth. Do not try to speak lies.
Indra replied, "My dear mother, because I was grossly blinded by selfish interests, I lost sight of religion. When I understood that you were observing a great vow in spiritual life, I wanted to find some fault in you. When I found such a fault, I entered your womb and cut the embryo to pieces."
When I first I cut the child in the womb into 7 pieces, which became 7 children. Then I cut each of the children into 7 pieces again. By the grace of the Supreme Lord, however, none of them died.
My dear mother, when I saw that all 49 sons were alive, I was certainly struck with wonder. I decided that this was a secondary result of your having regularly executed devotional service and worship of Lord Vishnu.
Text 74. Although those who are interested only in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead do not desire anything material from the Lord and do not even want liberation, Lord Krishna fulfills all their desires.
Dustin, you want to read? Or, oh.
The ultimate goal of all ambition is to become a servant of a Supreme Personality of Godhead. If an intelligent man serves the most dear Lord, who gives himself to his devotee, how can he desire material happiness, which is available even in the hell?
Dustin, you want to read the next text?
O mother, O best of all women, I am a fool. Kindly excuse me for whatever offenses I have committed. Your 49 sons have been born unhurt because of your devotional service. As an enemy, I cut them to pieces, but because of your great devotional service, they did not die.
Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued, Diti was extremely satisfied by Indra's good behavior. Then Indra offered his respects to his aunt with profuse obeisances, and with her permission he went away to the heavenly planets with his brothers, the Maruts.
My dear King Parikshit, I have replied as far as possible to the questions you have asked me, especially in regard to this pure, auspicious narration about the Maruts. Now you may inquire further, and I shall explain more.
Jai. So that's the end of the chapter. And now we're going to go to Text 71. Indrovacha Ambateham Vyavasitam Upadharya Gato Nitkam Abhantaro Chidam Garbham Arta Budhir Nadharmajik. Please recite. Indrovacha Ambateham Vyavasitam Upadharyat Katoniktam Sarochitam Garbham Armajik Indrovacha Padayam Yatonikam Sarochitam Garbham Armajik. Anyone else? Indrovacha Mateyam Vyavasitam Adayat Katoktigam Labhantara Chidam Garbham Arudhirna Dharmajik. All together. Indrovacha. Indra said, Amba, O mother, Te, your, I, Evastitam, Upadharya, understanding, Agata, came, Antikam, nearby, Labdha, having found, Tara, a fault, Achidam, I cut, Garbham, the embryo, Arta Buddhi, self-interested, Na, not, Dharmajik, possessing vision of religion. Translation. So read. Translation and purport. You can read.
Translation. Indra replied, My dear mother, because I was grossly blinded by selfish interest, I lost sight of religion. When I understood that you were observing a great vow in the spiritual life, I wanted to find some fault in you. When I found such a fault, I entered your womb and cut the embryo to pieces. Purport. When Diti, Indra's aunt, explained to Indra without reservation that she had wanted to do, Indra explained his intention to her. Thus both of them, instead of being enemies, freely spoke the truth. This is the qualification that results from contact with Vishnu. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12, Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagyavati Akinchana Sarvair Janaisatra Samastame Sura. If one develops a devotional attitude and becomes purified by worshipping the Supreme Lord, all the good qualities are certainly manifested in this body. Because of being touched by worship of Vishnu, both Diti and Indra were purified.
Jai. Translation purport. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. All right. Wow. So we're ending this very interesting section. And the theme today is about communication. And can someone tell me why, if we're doing a spiritual discussion right now, why would we talk about communication? Seems kind of like a mundane thing. Yeah, it's important. Communication is important in spiritual life, and it's actually described as a Brahminical quality, honesty, arjavam, and to be straightforward in one's dealings and one's speaking. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us a very vivid picture of someone who's performing a spiritual practice and someone else has envy towards them. And because of that envy, they're almost waiting for them to make a mistake. I know that I've definitely experienced that before where, we're living with other devotees and we're associating with them. And there's this negative quality where we want to find fault in someone. And why do we want to find fault in someone's character? Tulsi Saki. So she said, because we feel insufficient in our own quality and we can't go up, so let's pull them down. Yeah, so that's what envy is. Envy is to pull someone down. And sometimes it's in hopes that it'll push you up if you pull them down. So this is something that Indra was doing. He was pretending to be her friend even. He was pretending to serve her very nicely. But inside he had this this dark motivation that as soon as she messes up, I'll get her. I'll get my way. So that's something that we experience, and it can be very embarrassing to acknowledge that we have envy and that we have envy towards other devotees in our community. But here we're seeing that Indra, he very freely just expresses what honestly happened. And same thing with Diti. Diti said, I was having a son to kill you. What can I say? She was just very straightforward about it. And she said, please don't try to speak lies. Let's just sit down together and let's just talk it out. Let's just be honest with each other what was going on. And Indra, because of her straightforwardness and her honesty, was also able to say, my dear mother, I was blinded by selfish interests. I lost sight of religion, and I wanted to find some fault, and I tried to kill your child inside the womb. And this is what we call open and honest communication, when people are able to sit down together, and you almost have to put your ego to the side. You may want to think, I didn't do it. I had pure intentions. I didn't mess up at all. But in spiritual life, we kind of have to go beyond that. And we have to say, a mistake was made, but I am not the body, and I'm not the mind, and I'm not my intelligence. And so, in a sense, I'm aloof from this mistake. I shouldn't be afraid to say that a mistake was made, because we all make mistakes. We're all conditioned. That's one of the 4 defects, is that we cheat. We make mistakes. We have imperfect senses. And what was the last one? We're illusioned, yeah. So, in a sense, we should be embarrassed that we're in the material world, but we also shouldn't be embarrassed to be honest about our shortcomings with each other. And so this honesty, it's actually a very strong quality. It's a very empowering quality, because when we're very honest, when we're very straightforward, no one can hurt us even. No one can break past that fortification. One of my spiritual teachers, he very much encourages us to use I statements. When you said this, I felt hurt. And so it takes vulnerability. I guess I'll prelude. He says, you use this I statement, and you say, when this happened, I felt this way. But the most important part is you stop right there. You don't give the purport. You don't say, the reason I felt this way is because you're always, you just say, when this happened, I felt this way. I felt hurt. I felt, confused. I felt betrayed, Or even betrayed, it could have a context that you're betraying me. So you still have to be a little careful. But when we're in this position of honestly speaking how we feel, we can't get hurt more. I mean, someone can try. They can try to say, okay, this person is being vulnerable. And there's 2 options. They can either play into that themselves and also be vulnerable, also open up with honesty, or they can try to, twist the knife, try to, go deeper into the wound. And that's how you know not to associate with that person in the future. But this honesty, it can let us have a compass of, when to know which relationships are worth saving and which relationships we just have to take a step back from. Because when we put all our cards out on the table, then we're also showing Krishna that we're not afraid of the consequences. We see that Parikshit Maharaj, he did something you could also say was quite embarrassing. He put a dead snake on a sage. Imagine, imagine you're a sincere devotee, you're serving in the temple, and one of the gurus comes and they're giving a class or something like that, and you make some kind of offense, you make some kind of embarrassing thing. And that's very, it can be embarrassing to realize that you made a mistake. And even after that, he got cursed to die in 7 days. But he wasn't afraid of the consequences of his actions, because he knows that Krishna is taking care. And also, I was hearing once from Mother Urmila, you can think, how many things in my life have I gotten away with? How many times have I done something and no one noticed? No one caught me. No one, it seems like I almost went under the radar. So sometimes we can feel like, oh my God, I don't deserve the repercussions I'm getting for my actions. But you can also have this perspective of, what have I not gotten repercussions for in my life? And we see that Krishna, he's not gonna throw us out because of some material mistake, but he's going to let us grow from it in a way that will help us to come closer to him. So, this is the quality of a devotee, is that they have faith, that they can be vulnerable and Krishna will protect them. They can be honest and Krishna will protect them. They can put their own values at the forefront, and they know that Krishna will protect them. Krishna will guide whoever is bad association. It'll be very clear to me if my values are at the front, if my honesty is at the front. It'll be very clear to me who is good association, who's bad association. And we can look forward to the following verses. He went into quite detail about what happened. He wasn't really hiding anything. He said, first I went into your womb and I cut them into 7 pieces, and then I cut them again into 7 pieces, and somehow none of them died. And I was certainly struck with wonder. This must have been from your worship of Lord Vishnu. And this is again another theme, is that we're seeing such a result of deities worship. Srila Prabhupada talks about in the purport of this verse that she was only doing devotional service for 1 year. Just for 1 year, and she had this result. I was thinking some of the devotees at Krishna House, they're coming up on their 1 year in Krishna House. Haribol. And we can think similarly how Krishna, he will take care of us. If we're honest about the desires, he will allow us to kind of fulfill them, but he'll put a positive spin on it, like he did with this story, If it went the way that Diti had wanted, or if it went the way that she had planned, imagine the chaos, the drama, the hurt, Imagine if this son actually did grow up to kill Indra. How would Kashyapa feel? How would Indra feel? And the son, and it's the way that Krishna arranged this is so much better. That Indra, he had a change of heart. Diti had a change of heart. Her sons came out to be nice devotees. And all because of the worship of Vishnu, all because of the worship of Krishna. So, that's what I had to discuss on this verse today. And we'll open up. Prabhupada Priya.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Such amazing, really good points that you made. Very relevant, very practical. Something that struck me here from the verses is that right after Indra is admitting what he did, that, I cut your sons to pieces and all that. Then it says, in text 77, it says, Shukadeva Goswami continued, Diti was extremely satisfied by Indra's good behavior. And I was thinking, wow, that's pretty astounding that after he just told her like all the atrocious, abominable things that he did, he literally was like killing her child, and she was extremely satisfied by his good behavior, because to her, his honesty was more important than what he did wrong. Like the fact that he honestly admitted what he did and was very clear and straightforward, that just overrode everything else. And she thought, oh, he's a good person because he was honest. And I was thinking that sometimes when we make mistakes, we can get defensive because we're thinking that's going to make it better. We're thinking that's going to minimize the hurt that's been done if we can somehow explain ourselves, explain our way out of it, or try to make ourselves to be innocent. And if we convince the person that way, then it's going to make them feel better, and it's going to make us better, and the relationship's going to be fine, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. But actually, if he had gotten defensive or, tried to blame her, oh, well, you should have never had such a horrible desire in the first place, and you deserved it, and your kids, were going to be bad and destroy the whole universe, or whatever, upset the balance of the universe, so I was justified, then she would have just gotten more angry, and she would have done a worse vow or something, it just would have snowballed the maliciousness. But it's in his just admitting, yeah, I messed up. He says, I'm a fool. Please excuse me for my offenses. And then she just immediately was like, okay, this is more important to me. So yeah, it's a lesson for us that when we make mistakes, that if we really want to make it better, then we should just, fess up and take responsibility, and and then everybody will appreciate us for that. Mm-hmm. And that almost like makes what we did less bad, Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I was thinking I have a friend, and he's just like a total open book. And sometimes I'm a little bit like, you're a little too honest sometimes, It's like, yeah, I'm struggling this way and that way and that way. I'm like, okay. But his honesty really endears him to the devotees, and it opens him up for so much more mercy. And it opens him up for, people trust him more, and they don't even care if he, has any shortcomings, just because he's so forthright about them. And that's another point again, is people, they can't criticize you when you're very just honest about where your shortcomings are. That's almost like a thing in the material world, like if you're doing like a battle with someone, first you say all your own disqualifications, and then they have nothing to say on their turn. So they're just standing there like, So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Any other points on this topic? You're saying
I was, I really appreciated your points about, honest communication and being straightforward. And I was thinking, as Prabhupada was talking about how, she just basically just forgave him for trying to kill her son just because he was being honest and straightforward about it. And I was also thinking that it probably helped that instead of, she had 49 sons, so that there was a positive outcome in a sense. I imagine that helped. But then I was thinking also that because she's a devotee, right, Krishna intervened in that sense. And then I was thinking in our own lives how you know, obviously Indra's not coming to cut any of our children to pieces, and we don't have these kinds of things happening. But I was thinking similarly in our own lives, the more that we're fully surrendered to Krishna and that we're trying to utilize our life in Krishna's service, that Krishna's there, and that when we make mistakes or when others make mistakes in devotional service, if they're sincerely trying to serve, that Krishna will kind of, you know, carry what we lack and preserve what we have in that sense. And so kind of to have that, I don't know, I was just thinking that faith, that as devotees, really there's no loss for what we're doing. We're going to make mistakes, others will make mistakes, but we can be peaceful knowing that ultimately Radhakala Chanji, not a blade of grass, is moving without their will. And if we're all sincerely trying to serve together, then there's no need to, like, I don't know, rake somebody over the coals and just like beat them down if they're sincerely, I made a mistake, and they sincerely come forward and talk about it. So anyway, just really appreciating the discussion and the topic.
Yeah,
Thank
you for such a nice point. I was thinking, just on your point, that because she was a devotee, Krishna, an attack towards her became for her benefit. It became a positive for her. I was thinking about Shishupal. He criticizes Krishna, and his words are like arrows, you know. He's like saying these terrible things. But because he's Krishna, the Acharyas, they turned every insult into a compliment of Krishna's character. And, you know, the arrows became like flowers at his feet, in a sense, you know. So if we're sincere in our devotional service, people may try to attack us. They tried to attack Srila Prabhupada. They tried to blaspheme Bhaktisiddhanta. But the attacks turned into glorifications of them. And perhaps their resilience to the attacks, or the attacker, their hearts got changed. But we don't have to be afraid of negative situations. We don't have to be afraid of people attacking us, because if we're sincere, if Krishna is protecting us, that turns into a glorification of us, or it turns to our benefit somehow.
I had a thought very similar to what Narasingh Prabhu was saying, in the sense that would it be fine if the outcome was not to their favor, right? In Indra's case, he had his brothers, so he was not going to be killed. And in Diti's case, her sons were not killed. Instead of one, she had 49. Would the same honest communication have happened if the threat was still there, right? If the threat to Indra was still there, or if the threat to Diti would have still been there, in terms of if her son was killed. And first, I would like to know, I have some thoughts on it, but I want to know what you think about it in terms of honest communication when threat might still exist. In this case, everything was nicely resolved. So you could be goody-goody with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I was thinking more than, you know, like all's well that ends well, that even as devotees, that even if something externally appears like a negative or a setback, that ultimately, like once we've surrendered our lives to Krishna, there's actually no like negative and positive. There's not really a setback. It's just we don't really see what the journey is that we're going on, and Krishna is putting these things in our path in order to help us in our spiritual life. So like whoever does something to us, we know that that was just coming to me, and it was a result of my karma and my past actions. So not in the sense, but I really like this point. I have some thoughts too, but I want to hear from Drishtajumna Prabhu first.
Yeah, well, I was like, wow, that's an interesting question. I'm not exactly sure. But I was thinking that the onus, is that the way to say it? The onus is on us, in a sense that if we see a situation escalating, or if we see a situation perhaps getting more tense, more violent, or more, dangerous in a way. Of course, like danger, like other people getting hurt, ourselves getting physically hurt, that's, something that you could very seriously call authorities, call the police or something like that. But if we see something escalating, almost one of the best ways to disarm it is to try to open up the honest thing anyways. You still try to somehow just, because usually, at least among devotees, it's a misunderstanding. And so if you address the misunderstanding, then the the tension, the escalation, all these things, they'll kind of sort it out, and it'll be like, okay, you know, this is our situation now. How do we fix it? And I had this thought the other day. Kind of these two devotees weren't really getting along, and I was like, how is it possible that like these two devotees, they're both like so sincere, they're both so sweet, they're both, you know, chanting so nicely and stuff like that, but somehow like the puzzle pieces just aren't like linking, you know? And it's, in the end of the day, it's all just because of a misunderstanding. It's not like, you know, if devotees are sincere, the problems between them will just be a misunderstanding in a sense.
Yeah. So, at least in this situation of Diti and Indra, the problem is really deep, right? Isn't it? Okay, if it's a superficial misunderstanding or something, okay, you can sit down and speak. But here she has lost her two sons, and she is in an incredibly vengeful attitude towards Indra. It's not something that's on the surface. It's something that's very visceral. For a mother to lose children is unimaginable. However horrible the sons might be. Right, from the mother's perspective, she has lost her sons. So this is a really deep problem. Although it's a problem, it's a really deep problem that she has. And the first time, the way she acted, and the second time, the way she acted was completely different, which was because I thought the 1 year of incredibly rigorous devotional service that she did, the intensity mattered, is what I think. Right, the devotional service completely tried to take that really deep gunk from her heart and somehow try to resolve it. And then it came to a point where you can think of how the bull thinks, right? When Parikshit Maharaj asks, who is at fault? This is Kali hitting him right in front of his eyes, and yet he doesn't point the finger to Kali. He says, you can never say who is at fault. I mean, it's all because of my past actions and you can come to that point, that consciousness, it's a really advanced consciousness, isn't it? To actually, in that moment, think that what I'm facing is because of my past activities. Hindsight, we might be able to think of it. But in that situation, to think of it is actually, and I think we need that kind of intense practice that Diti went through to actually get to that point, which is what I was thinking. Okay, it's a really remarkable situation, but yet Krishna put it because of the incredible practice.
Thank you for such a nice point. It's highlighting that while this open and honest communication may seem like a material tool, a material strategy, it does take actual spiritual qualities to do it, which is like what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport with Yasasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Kinchana, that by a devotional attitude, one becomes purified enough to then be able to communicate honestly. And it makes them, it softens their heart to a point where they can be vulnerable, they can be honest and reflective.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I was just thinking that like way back when you know, Diti kind of pulled Kashyapa into conceiving children at the wrong time, and then afterwards she found out that she was going to give birth to demons, and then she tried to keep them. She was like, then she was remorseful. She tried to keep them in the womb as long as possible to not, you know, like cause disturbance to the planet. And then she went to her husband and she like, you know, apologized and begged forgiveness and begged for some blessing for the children, like let them not be so bad, let it be okay, you know. And then finally he said, no, they will be born and they will be demons, but they'll be very fortunate because they'll be killed by Lord Vishnu. And then it's described there that it says that she was happy. She was like, really? She was like, oh, then it's okay, they'll get liberated. So she was actually really happy that her kids were going to get killed by Lord Vishnu and be liberated. Like, what a great boon. So but then when they did get killed, then she got upset. So, and she became vengeful, right? So I'm thinking that this was all, you know, this feeling that arose in her, this vengeance against Indra, which was not even, Indra didn't even kill them. You know, it was just so like, where did that even come from? Because first of all, before she was happy that they would be killed by Vishnu. And then when they were killed by Vishnu, instead of being happy, she wasn't happy. And then she blamed somebody who didn't even do it. So like, I feel like this mentality that she developed was just inspired by the Lord from within the heart to get her to do this year of devotional service, you know, so that she could make some spiritual advancement, and then she could not, you know, get herself into these kind of predicaments again, giving birth to demons and things. So now, because she did the devotional service, now instead of giving birth to demons, she gave birth to devotees. And that was good. Yeah.
So often in our spiritual life, we have said, okay, if you are suffering, don't blame Krishna. So that's one thing that she did. She didn't blame Vishnu, even though he was directly responsible. It's a similar point. So then she had more leeway to, go ahead and practice. Versus Hiranyakashipu, he was directly blaming, you killed my brother. So I guess that was one. And then to Prabhu's point, what I was thinking also, if we are in such situations, the other example of Indra and Prithu Maharaj, where the horse sacrifice was happening and it kept going, and then other senior devotees asked Prithu Maharaj, who I would assume to be more mature, to back off. So there's also other devotees also intervene, and then to the wiser of the two, say, okay, you can back off.
I just think it's funny how sometimes Krishna gives us some funny, I don't know, maybe it's Maya, maybe it's Krishna, but for devotees, like Nrsimha Rupa was saying, it all turns out well because, Krishna's controlling everything. But sometimes devotees get some, ideas or feelings or inspirations or, that can seem negative or wrong, but then they end up being right, or they end up being for the ultimate good of everyone, even though it looks like the person's really in bad consciousness. It's very bewildering.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how she had kind of this theoretical understanding that her sons would be killed by Vishnu, and she was happy, but when it actually came to when it happens, then that theoretical understanding is like perhaps challenged. And so after a year of devotional service, she got to a more mature stage too. But yeah. So yeah, if we're having issues with other devotees, we can try to mature ourselves spiritually in hopes that we'll be able to openly and honestly communicate. And hopefully they'll also do bhakti intensely and they can be mature as well. Any final? Oh.
He's repeated it quite often, that when he was the temple president in Juhu, the devotees would come to him for complaints.
Mm-hmm.
They were always, this devotee was complaining. But then the thing with Juhu was they were having, every Ekadashi, I think they would have whole day of kirtans in the temple. So what he would say was, let's meet after Ekadashi. He would push the problem to Ekadashi, and then all the devotees would come together and chant, and then they would not come back with problems, the same problems again. So if they came back again, he would push it to the next Ekadashi. And in that way, when devotees came and practiced devotional service together, somehow the conflicts seemed to have evaporated.
Jai. Kirtan ki jai.
Just one last little quick point. I think the other thing that's important is just from like a practical standpoint is both of them came with this mood of like openness and honesty. It wasn't like Aditi, like she was still just like bashing Indra and he said, I'm sorry, but she just kept going, right? And you wouldn't have this. But they both they had that mood. So they were both kind of willing to approach it together and be open and honest and kind of take the humble position and then it had this wonderful result. So from being devotees, right? The qualities of devotees like that. Because sometimes you'll have a person that's just like stuck and holding on, and somebody else is trying to resolve and trying to be. So anyway, I was just wanted to, like it's, makes a difference.
Takes some purity to do that. And if a devotee tries to be honest and humble with us, we need to let go of the grudge, and we need to not just say, oh, now they are showing their weak points. Let me record them, or let me, But we put it behind us, and we try to see that this spirit soul isn't their mistakes, and the spirit soul is now trying to make things better. So why don't I just drop it it's temporary anyways. So, all right. Grantaraj Shyam Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.